They thought humans would beg. That was the mistake. The alien tribunal hall was carved from black crystal, tall and cold, humming with power older than Earth's oceans. Thousands of alien eyes watched in silence as a single human stood chained at the center platform. Above him, floating thrones held the rulers of the Dominion. Below him, two identical figures knelt on opposite sides of the floor. Twin sisters. Both alive. Both terrified. Only one would leave this hall breathing. Captain Ethan Cross kept his face calm, even as his heart slammed against his ribs. Years of Deep Space Command had trained him well. Panic solved nothing. Fear was a luxury he could not afford. "Choose," the Dominion overseer said, its voice echoing like metal grinding stone. "One sister survives. The other dies tonight." The crowd leaned forward. They wanted to see a human break. The sisters were not human. Their skin shimmered like pale silver, their eyes glowing softly with bioluminescent rings. The Dominion called their species Lunari, valued engineers, feared thinkers, dangerous dreamers. These two were named Scylla and Marin, daughters of a rebel scientist who had dared to help humanity. That was why they were here. That was why Ethan was here. Earth's first interstellar alliance had failed. Talks had turned into arrests. Then into executions. Ethan's ship had been seized the moment it entered Dominion space. His crew was imprisoned. He alone was brought here. For this. "You hesitate," the overseer said. "Is human logic failing you?" Ethan slowly lifted his head. "No," he said. "I'm calculating." A ripple of amusement passed through the alien rulers. Scylla looked at him. Her eyes were steady, brave despite the tremble in her hands. Marin was crying quietly, trying not to make a sound. Ethan had met them only days ago, yet the weight of their lives now pressed on his chest like gravity. He remembered how it had begun. 3 days earlier, Ethan had been escorting a humanitarian convoy through neutral space. The Lunari sisters had secretly boarded his ship, carrying stolen Dominion data cores. They believed humans would listen. They believed humans would help. They were right. But belief had consequences. The overseer rose higher, its massive form unfolding. "You will choose now, human. Refuse, and both die." Silence stretched. Ethan closed his eyes for half a second. Then he smiled. It was small. Calm. "Wrong. I choose neither," he said. A sharp hiss cut through the hall. "That is not an option." "Then add this," Ethan replied. "I choose myself." Confusion flickered across alien faces. "I take full responsibility," Ethan continued. "Execute me. Release them. You want a symbol? Make me one." The overseer studied him. "You assume your life holds equal value." Ethan opened his eyes and looked straight at the alien ruler. "No," he said. "I assume it holds more." The crowd erupted in noise. Laughter. Rage. Shock. The overseer's voice dropped, cold and precise. "Arrogance. Typical of your species." "Maybe," Ethan said. "Or maybe you've never met a species that plans 10 steps ahead." Without warning, the chains around his wrists tightened, sending pain through his arms. Ethan didn't flinch. "You think this is a game?" the overseer demanded. "No," Ethan said quietly. "I think it's a test." The overseer paused. Ethan turned his head slightly, just enough to look at the sisters. His voice softened. "Whatever happens," he said, "remember this. Humans don't win by choosing who dies. We win by changing the rules." The overseer raised one clawed limb. "Enough," it declared. "Human, you will choose." The lights flickered. Just once. Almost unnoticeable. But Ethan noticed. So did the Dominion engineers watching from the upper levels. The Lunari sisters felt it too. A vibration, deep and wrong, pulsing through the crystal floor. Ethan's smile widened. "Right on time," he whispered. The overseer froze. "What have you done?" Ethan lifted his chained hands slightly. "While you were busy preparing this little show, my ship's AI finished decrypting the data your prisoners smuggled aboard. The vibration intensified. Screens across the hall blinked to life. Dominion war crimes. Hidden exterminations. Entire species erased in silence. Proof streamed across every display, broadcast not just in the hall, but across Dominion space. Panic exploded. You wanted a choice. Ethan said, his voice rising over the chaos. Here's mine. Either you stop this execution, or the entire galaxy learns what monsters you really are. The Overseer roared in fury. Guards surged forward. And above the tribunal hall, far beyond the black crystal ceiling, something massive shifted in orbit. Human ships. More than the Dominion expected. The impossible choice was no longer just Ethan's. It was theirs. And humanity was done begging. The tribunal hall became a storm. Dominion guards rushed the platform, their armor flashing with blue energy as they formed a moving wall around the Overseer. The crowd of officials, engineers, and observers scattered in panic. Some tried to flee. Others stood frozen, watching the screens as the evidence kept streaming. Atrocities with dates, coordinates, signatures. Captain Ethan Cross didn't fight the chains. He didn't need to. Because the Dominion had made a mistake that humans never ignored. They had given him an audience. And humans always planned around audiences. Stop the broadcast, the Overseer roared, its voice cracking the air like a weapon. A technician screamed back from the upper levels. We can't. The signal is riding our own relays. It's using Dominion priority channels. The Overseer's eyes, flat, black, ancient, snapped to Ethan. You infected our systems. Ethan shrugged as much as the chains allowed. Your systems infected themselves. You built them to never question authority. That's the weakness. Humans question everything. The Overseer lifted its claw again. Kill him. Now. Scylla flinched. Merrin cried out. Ethan spoke quickly, sharp and controlled, aiming his words like a blade. If you execute me, he warned, you confirm every line of that broadcast. You'll turn me into a martyr, and you know what humans do with martyrs. The Overseer hesitated. It was only a heartbeat, but it was enough. Because Scylla moved. She had been kneeling in silence, hands bound, head lowered, looking like a victim. But her eyes were not empty. They were calculating, like Ethan's. And when the Overseer's attention shifted, she flexed her wrists once. A small metallic object slid from her sleeve and dropped onto the crystal floor. A simple ring. No bigger than a coin. It rolled toward the base of Ethan's platform and clicked into place near a seam in the floor. Ethan didn't look down. But his pulse changed. He knew what she had done. Merrin saw it too, and her fear turned into something else, focus. She swallowed her tears, straightened her back, and began breathing in a controlled rhythm. Ethan had seen soldiers do that before a breach. It meant one thing. The sisters were not helpless. The Dominion guards reached Ethan. Two grabbed his shoulders. One raised an energy spear to strike. The ring hummed. A faint vibration shot through the platform. Then the crystal floor beneath the nearest guard shattered like glass. The guard dropped with a scream into a maintenance gap, only a meter deep, but enough to break formation. The others stumbled, shocked. What? One shouted. Scylla lifted her head, calm and cold. Old fortress design, she said softly, as if explaining a lesson. Your Dominion rebuilt the surface. They never understood what lived underneath. The Overseer bared its teeth. Lunari trickery. No, Ethan said. Lunari engineering. There's a difference. The guards tried to regroup, but Merrin moved now too. She twisted her bound wrists and snapped a hidden filament. Her restraints opened like they were never locked. Dominion tech wasn't meant to stop Lunari hands. Merrin lunged toward a fallen guard and ripped a control baton from its belt. The baton sparked, trying to recognize her, but she slammed it against the crystal edge, shorting it. Then she threw it to Ethan. Ethan caught it cleanly. The Overseer's eyes widened for the first time. A human, armed. A human, standing. Ethan turned the baton in his hands and smiled again, this time without humor. Your mistake, he said, is that you think control is the same as strength. He swung the baton into his chains. The baton flared. The locks exploded outward. Ethan stepped forward, free. The crowd screamed. The overseer roared, "Contain him!" Dozens of guards surged from the hall entrances. A wall of black armor and blue light. Ethan didn't run. He moved toward the sisters. "Stay behind me," he ordered. Scylla shook her head. "No." Marin's eyes burned. "We end this together." Ethan exhaled once. Humans loved to protect. Sometimes too much. But this wasn't a human moment. This was an alliance moment. He nodded. "Then do exactly what I say." Scylla's gaze sharpened. "Speak." Ethan glanced at the screens still streaming Dominion crimes. "They're going to cut the power," he said. "If they shut down the hall, they shut down the broadcast." Marin pointed upward. "Power feeds run through the upper conduits." Scylla's lips tightened. "Dominion security nodes are there too." Ethan looked at them. "Good. Then we take the conduits." The overseer heard enough. It raised both claws. A pulse wave slammed outward. Invisible force hit Ethan like a truck, throwing him backward. He crashed into the platform edge, pain ripping through his spine. His vision blurred. The sisters stumbled too, but Scylla caught herself, sliding one foot back like she'd practiced on ice. Marin nearly fell, until Ethan grabbed her arm and yanked her upright. The overseer advanced slowly, enjoying it. "You are nothing here," it said. "Your ships above? They will be destroyed. Your broadcast? It will be silenced. Your rebellion?" A spark crushed under a boot. Ethan wiped blood from his lip and forced himself to stand. "You don't understand sparks," he said. He tapped the control baton twice. A sharp tone echoed. The hall's emergency doors, heavy, sealed, meant to trap threats, suddenly slammed shut. Guards on the far side were locked out. Guards on the inside turned in shock. The overseer's head snapped toward a technician balcony. "Who did that?" A Dominion officer shouted, confused. "Security override. Someone has command access." Ethan nodded toward the sisters. Scylla lifted 2 fingers, almost casual. "My father built half your fortress protocols. Your Dominion just inherited them." The overseer screamed in fury and lunged. Ethan threw the baton, hard. It struck a guard's spear mid-charge, knocking the spear sideways. The spear's blue energy sliced into another guard's armor, shorting it. 2 collapsed in sparks. Ethan sprinted for the left stairwell. "Move!" he shouted. Scylla and Marin ran with him, fast and silent. Behind them, chaos grew. Guards firing. Officials screaming. Screens still broadcasting. The overseer roaring orders into a collapsing system. They hit the stairs and climbed, 2 steps at a time, Ethan taking point. His shoulder burned from the slam, but he kept moving. Pain meant nothing compared to the moment. This was bigger than survival. This was narrative. This was proof. They reached a narrow upper corridor lined with glowing conduits. The air was warmer here, filled with the smell of ozone and metal. Maintenance drones hovered in alcoves like sleeping insects. Marin pointed ahead. "Control junction. If we reach it, we can keep the broadcast alive." Ethan nodded. "Then we reach it." A Dominion squad appeared at the far end, 6 soldiers, weapons raised. No room to hide. No room to retreat. Ethan slowed. Scylla stepped forward instead. She raised her hands, not surrender, but focus. "What are you doing?" Ethan hissed. Scylla's voice dropped. "Creating a new rule." She turned to Marin. "The harmonics." Marin's eyes widened. "Here. Now." Scylla didn't blink. "If not now, we die. If we do it, the fortress becomes ours." Ethan's mind raced. He didn't know the details, but he understood enough. The Lunari weren't just engineers. They tuned technology. They treated energy like music. And this fortress, ancient, layered, misunderstood, was full of resonant systems the Dominion never mastered. The squad opened fire. Blue bolts streaked down the corridor. Ethan grabbed Marin and yanked her behind a conduit column. Scylla didn't move. Instead, she pressed her palm against the conduit wall. She closed her eyes and began to hum. Soft at first, then stronger. The conduit lights flickered in rhythm. The bolts coming toward her bent, just slightly, like the air had thickened into a curve. The guards froze. "What is that?" one shouted. Marin joined in, her voice blending with Scylla's. 2 tones. Perfectly matched. The corridor began to vibrate. Ethan felt it in his teeth. Then the entire conduit wall lit up like a giant circuit waking from sleep. The fortress responded. Not to Dominion commands. To Lunari resonance. And in that moment, Ethan understood the real terror in the Overseer's eyes earlier. The Dominion didn't fear humans alone. They feared humans and Lunari together. Because humans didn't just fight. Humans partnered. Humans adapted. Humans turned enemies into allies and weakness into weapons. Scylla opened her eyes. They glowed brighter now. She looked at Ethan. "Captain," she said calmly, "give me 10 seconds." Ethan didn't ask for time. He made time. He stepped out from cover, raised the baton, and charged straight at the Dominion squad, one human sprinting into gunfire like he had nothing to lose. Because humanity never waited for permission. And the fortress was about to sing. The fortress sang. Not in sound alone, but in motion, in light, in power shifting through ancient pathways never meant for Dominion hands. The corridor shook as Scylla and Marin's voices blended into a single harmonic thread. The conduits along the walls pulsed, brightening and dimming like a living heartbeat. Ethan ran straight into the storm. Blue energy bolts streaked past him, bending just enough to miss. One burned across his sleeve, searing fabric and skin, but he didn't slow. He moved the way humans always did when the odds turned impossible. Forward, faster, harder. A Dominion guard fired again. The bolt curved midair and slammed into the ceiling instead, exploding in a shower of sparks. The guard stared at his weapon in disbelief. "What is happening?" he shouted. Ethan reached him before the answer came. He swung the baton low, smashing it into the guard's knee joint. Armor cracked. The guard fell. Ethan pivoted, grabbed the fallen spear, and hurled it down the corridor. The spear struck another soldier in the chest, discharging its energy in a blinding flash. The remaining guards broke formation. That was the moment Ethan knew they were winning. Not because of strength. Because of confusion. Behind him, Scylla's voice rose, steady and commanding. Marin matched her perfectly, adjusting tone by instinct, by memory, by a science the Dominion had never bothered to understand. The fortress responded like an old ally waking from a long sleep. Panels slid open along the walls. Maintenance drones activated, swarming into the corridor like silver insects. The drones weren't armed. They didn't need to be. They slammed into Dominion soldiers at full speed, disrupting aim, blocking vision, knocking weapons aside. One guard fired wildly and hit his own comrade. Another tripped and fell as the floor beneath him subtly shifted. Ethan turned and shouted, "Now!" Scylla broke the harmonic first, grabbing Marin's hand. The vibration softened, controlled now instead of wild. The corridor stabilized enough for them to run. They sprinted toward the control junction, boots pounding against crystal and metal. Alarms wailed, overlapping, contradicting each other. The Dominion systems were fighting themselves. At the far end of the corridor, a massive circular door stood closed, its surface covered in shifting symbols. Marin skidded to a stop. "It's locked." Ethan stepped up beside her. "Can you open it?" Scylla pressed her palm to the door. Her brow furrowed. "It's resisting." "Dominion override?" Ethan asked. "No," she said. "Something older." The symbols changed faster, reacting to her touch. Marin's eyes widened. It recognizes Lunari design. Ethan looked between them. Then talked to it. Scylla closed her eyes again. This time she didn't hum. She whispered. Soft words in a language Ethan didn't understand, but felt. The door's surface warmed under her hand. The symbols slowed. Then aligned. The door split open with a low, respectful sound. They rushed inside. The control junction was vast and circular, suspended over a glowing core of energy that descended into darkness. Platforms floated at different heights, connected by narrow bridges. At the center hovered a crystalline interface, alive with data streams. Marin gasped. They never should have built their systems on this. Ethan scanned the room. Why? Because it wasn't meant to be controlled, Scylla said quietly. It was meant to be guided. Behind them, heavy footsteps echoed. Ethan turned. The overseer stepped into the chamber. Up close, it was even more imposing, taller than any human, its ash-grey body reinforced with ceremonial armor that now hummed with power. Its eyes burned with fury and something else. Fear. You should not be here, it said. Ethan raised the baton, though he knew it wouldn't stop something like this. Funny. We were thinking the same thing about your rule. The overseer's gaze shifted to the sisters. You defile what your ancestors built. Scylla met its stare without blinking. We remember what they built. You only remember how to use it. The overseer raised its arms. Energy surged around it, forming a crackling field. The platforms trembled. One of the bridges collapsed into the glowing abyss below. You think harmony makes you powerful, the overseer said. But order is power. No, Ethan said. Order is comfort. Power is adaptation. The overseer attacked. A wave of force slammed outward, throwing Ethan off his feet. He crashed into a railing, the breath knocked from his lungs. The baton flew from his hand, skidding across a platform. Scylla and Marin were hurled apart, barely catching themselves. The overseer advanced, each step deliberate. Human. Watch as your allies fail. It fired a concentrated blast at Scylla. Marin screamed and ran toward her sister, but Ethan pushed himself up, ignoring the pain tearing through his ribs. He had seconds. He looked around. The floating platforms. The energy core. The interface. Humans didn't out-muscle gods. They out-thought them. Ethan sprinted, not toward the overseer, but toward the fallen baton. Another blast scorched past him, close enough to burn his hair. He dove, grabbed the baton, and kept running. Straight for the core. Stop, the overseer roared. Ethan skidded to the edge of the platform, staring down into the glowing depths. The energy below pulsed, raw and untamed. Scylla shouted, Ethan, don't. You'll destabilize. I know, he shouted back. That's the point. He slammed the baton into the interface controls beside the core. Nothing happened. For half a second. Then everything happened. The baton overloaded, dumping human-coded logic straight into the Lunari system. The interface flared white. Data streams scrambled, then reorganized, not under Dominion command, not under Lunari harmony alone, but under something new. Hybrid. The core's glow intensified, spreading outward in controlled waves. The platforms stabilized. The overseer staggered, its energy field flickering. What have you done? It demanded. Ethan stood tall, chest heaving. Introduced a variable you can't predict. Scylla's eyes widened in realization. You merged your logic with our harmonics. Ethan nodded. Humans don't just adapt. We integrate. Marin stepped beside him, awe in her voice. The fortress is choosing. The overseer tried to regain control, raising its arms again, but the energy ignored it. The core pulsed once more, and the overseer was lifted off the ground, suspended helplessly in the air. The interface spoke. Not in words. In understanding. Across Dominion space, systems shifted. Broadcasts locked open. Security doors sealed against Dominion command. Human ships in orbit felt it too, the fortress rerouting power, opening corridors, disabling defenses. On Ethan's comm, long silent, a voice crackled to life. "Captain Cross," came his first officer's voice, shocked and relieved. "We're free. Dominion locks just dropped. What did you do?" Ethan looked at the suspended overseer, then at the sisters. He smiled, tired but unbroken. "We made friends," he said. The overseer struggled, rage turning to desperation. "You will doom this region to chaos." Scylla stepped forward. "No. We're ending a lie." Marin added softly, "and giving choice back to those you stole it from." The fortress pulsed again. Outside, the galaxy was watching. Humans. Aliens. All of them. Watching a human stand with two Lunari sisters, not as a conqueror, not as a savior, but as a partner. And for the first time, the Dominion understood something too late. Humanity was never dangerous alone. Humanity was dangerous together. The fortress did not explode. That was what the Dominion had always feared. That if control slipped, everything would collapse into fire and ruin. That chaos meant destruction. They were wrong. The fortress stabilized. Energy flowed cleanly now, smoother than before, as if the ancient structure had been waiting for someone to listen instead of command. Lights shifted from harsh Dominion blue to a softer, neutral glow. Emergency alarms fell silent one by one. And the overseer hung in the air, powerless. Its limbs twitched as it tried to assert authority that no longer existed. "This is impossible," it hissed. "No system chooses against its masters." Ethan wiped sweat and blood from his brow and looked up at it. "Every system does," he said. "Eventually." Around them, the control junction responded to the hybrid interface. Doors across the fortress unlocked. Cells opened. Transport rails activated. In the lower levels, prisoners stared at each other in disbelief as restraints fell away, including Ethan's crew. On his comm, voices overlapped. "Captain, we're out. Security is down across 3 decks. Aliens are retreating, some are helping us." Ethan closed his eyes for a brief moment. Then he exhaled. Scylla stepped closer to the core, placing both palms near the interface without touching it. She didn't need to anymore. The system recognized her presence. "Our people will feel this," she said quietly. "The Lunari across Dominion space. They'll know the old harmonics are awake." Marin looked up at the suspended overseer. "And the Dominion?" Scylla's voice hardened. "They will feel fear." The overseer snarled. "You think fear will save you? Empires do not fall because of broadcasts and symbols. They fall only when force destroys them." Ethan shook his head. "Empires fall when people stop believing in them." He turned to the sisters. "How long can you hold this?" Scylla met his eyes. "Long enough." Marin added, "But not forever. The fortress is ancient. It will protect itself, not rule others." "That's fine," Ethan said. "We don't need forever." The control junction shuddered as a massive impact rocked the fortress. Ethan grabbed the railing to steady himself. "What was that?" he asked. Scylla's gaze lifted upward, as if she could see through layers of crystal and metal. "Dominion fleet. They're firing on the fortress." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Can the shields hold?" "Yes," Scylla said. "But only if we stop feeding power to their weapons systems." Marin moved to another platform, fingers flying over floating controls, already isolating them. Outside, human ships maneuvered in tight formation, weaving between Dominion fire. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but they weren't retreating. Because humans didn't leave their people behind. A second impact shook the fortress. Cracks rippled through the crystal ceiling, glowing briefly before sealing themselves. The overseer laughed, a hollow, broken sound. "You see? Your defiance ends in annihilation." Ethan stepped closer to it, close enough to see the fine fractures spreading across its ceremonial armor. "You still don't understand," he said. "This was never about winning a battle. He gestured toward the interface, where countless signals now flowed freely. It's about changing the story. Scylla turned sharply. Ethan, something's happening. The interface flared again, but this time the pattern was different. Not reactive. Intentional. Marin stared in awe. The fortress is broadcasting, not just evidence. Ethan frowned. What do you mean? It's sharing design logic, Scylla said slowly. Lunari knowledge. Old knowledge. Harmonized with your human systems. Ethan felt a chill. That means... Yes, Marin said. Any world listening can learn how to break Dominion control. The Overseer screamed. Stop it. It struggled violently now, but the energy held it fast. Ethan understood the risk immediately. If that spreads... The Dominion will never recover, Scylla finished. But neither will the balance remain the same. Ethan was silent for a moment. Then he nodded. Freedom's never clean, he said. But it's better than silence. Another explosion rocked the fortress, closer this time. His comm crackled. Captain, Dominion flagship is closing in. They're charging a planetary-class weapon. Ethan's blood ran cold. That'll tear this place apart, he said. Scylla turned to him, eyes steady. Then we end this here. Marin looked between them. You mean? Yes, Scylla said. We sever the fortress from Dominion space. Ethan stared at her. That would strand it. And us, Marin added softly. Ethan clenched his fists. Every instinct screamed against it. He had a duty to his crew. To Earth. To survive. But he also saw the truth. If the Dominion flagship fired, millions would die. Not just here, but worlds that never had a voice. Scylla stepped closer to him. Ethan, you gave us choice back. Let us give you one. Marin took his hand. Humans don't abandon allies. We know that. Ethan looked at their hands, human skin against Lunari silver. Then he looked up at the Overseer. At the system. At the galaxy watching. He made the decision. Do it, he said. Scylla placed both palms on the interface. Marin joined her. The harmonics returned, stronger, deeper, joined now by human logic running through the core. The fortress began to vibrate, not violently, but decisively. Space outside bent. The Dominion flagship fired. The beam never reached its target. The fortress folded space around itself, slipping sideways, not fleeing, but stepping out of reach. Not destroyed. Not gone. Hidden. Cut off. The blast tore through empty space. On human sensors, the fortress vanished. On Dominion screens, it became a ghost. Inside the control junction, the energy faded. The Overseer dropped to the floor, armor cracked, authority gone. Scylla collapsed to one knee, breathing hard. Marin steadied her. Ethan rushed to them. You okay? Scylla nodded weakly. Exhausted. But alive. Marin smiled faintly. And free. Ethan looked around the quiet control junction. No alarms. No explosions. Just the low hum of a fortress that had chosen its own fate. His comm buzzed. Captain, his first officer said, stunned. The Dominion fleet is retreating. And, sir, worlds are uprising. Everywhere. Ethan closed his eyes. Humanity had not fired the killing shot. Humanity had pulled the curtain back. And the galaxy would never be the same. But the story wasn't over yet. Because the hardest part wasn't breaking an empire. It was deciding what came after. Silence followed the storm. Not the empty silence of defeat, but the deep, steady quiet of something finished correctly. The fortress drifted in folded space, hidden between moments, its systems running at minimal output. No Dominion commands reached it. No weapons fired. No alarms screamed. For the first time in centuries, the ancient structure simply existed. Ethan Cross stood at the edge of the control platform, looking out at a projection of the stars, distorted, distant, but peaceful. Behind him, Scylla and Marin sat on the floor, backs against the glowing interface. Their breathing was slow now, recovering. The harmonics had taken a heavy toll. Lunari minds were powerful, but even they had limits. "You saved us," Marin said quietly. Ethan turned. "You saved the galaxy." Scylla shook her head. "No. We showed it a door. Humans were the ones who walked through it." Ethan didn't argue. That was something humans had learned long ago. Victory didn't belong to one species. It belonged to those willing to act. His comm chimed softly. "Captain," his first officer said, voice steadier now. "We've confirmed it. Dominion control nodes across 7 sectors have collapsed. Slave worlds are declaring independence. Some Dominion commanders are surrendering without a fight." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. "Any sign of retaliation?" he asked. "Not coordinated," the officer replied. "They built their empire on fear and hierarchy. Without it, they're lost." Ethan exhaled. "Understood. Begin humanitarian response. Priority to worlds that can't defend themselves." "Yes, sir." The channel closed. Scylla rose slowly to her feet and walked beside Ethan, following his gaze to the stars. "My father used to say something similar," she said. "That power built on fear always collapses inward." Marin smiled faintly. "He also said humans would be the spark." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "He knew about us." "He studied you," Scylla replied. "Your wars. Your mistakes. Your ability to recover. He believed humans were dangerous." Marin added, "Not because you destroy, but because you refuse to stay broken." Ethan looked down at his hands. Humans had failed more times than he could count. Earth history was full of scars. But they always stood back up. Not perfect. Not clean. Just stubborn enough to keep going. A low tone echoed through the fortress. Scylla stiffened. "The system is stabilizing." Marin nodded. "It's finished integrating. It won't answer to any single species now." Ethan turned to them. "What does that mean?" "It means," Scylla said carefully, "this place will never be a throne again." The interface pulsed once, gently. Then it projected something new. Not commands. Not weapons. Coordinates. Worlds. Trade routes. Safe passages. Knowledge. The fortress wasn't offering power. It was offering access. Ethan felt something shift in his chest. "This changes everything," he said. "Yes," Marin replied. "And that scares many." Ethan smiled slightly. "Good." They weren't alone for long. Human ships slipped into the folded space pocket, guided by the fortress itself. Not an invasion. Not an occupation. A meeting. Ethan watched as alien vessels appeared too, independent species long crushed under Dominion rule, drawn by the broadcast, by hope, by curiosity. A council formed naturally, not imposed. For the first time, humans were not knocking on a galactic door. They were standing inside, holding it open. Later, as the fortress dimmed into a calm glow, Ethan stood with Scylla and Marin at an observation platform. "What will you do now?" Marin asked. Ethan considered the question. "I'll go home," he said. "Tell Earth the truth. Not that we won, but that we changed things. That responsibility comes next." Scylla studied him. "And after that?" Ethan met her gaze. "After that, we keep showing up." Marin laughed softly. "That sounds like humans." Scylla placed a hand over the interface one last time. "Our people will rebuild. Quietly. Freely." Ethan nodded. "And if the Dominion tries again?" Scylla's eyes hardened, not with hatred, but certainty. They won't face one species next time. Ethan looked out at the growing coalition of ships. "No," he said. "They'll face an idea." The fortress hummed, approving. Far away, on worlds that had never heard a human voice, people looked up at unfamiliar skies and felt something new. Choice. Hope. Possibility. The Dominion had forced a human to choose between two lives. Humanity answered by choosing everyone. That was their true danger. Not strength. Not weapons. But the refusal to accept a broken universe as final. And somewhere in the vast, reshaped galaxy, the story did not end. It simply waited for the next human who would say, "We can do better."